A very good evening, and thanks for clicking on to Vogan's European Outlook for Wednesday, the 22nd of February. Lots going on, so let's get right to it. We are now seeing in the forecast the models trending colder with high latitude blocking the Arctic Oscillation. North Atlantic Oscillation is now starting to go negative on the models, and we are now starting to see the response from the sudden stratospheric warming that took place the middle portion of last week, and now we are getting into a much more interesting time frame. Rather than talking weeks in advance, we're starting to get closer and closer to reality. So the big test is coming. We're still got an element of uncertainty in terms of exactly where the blocking takes place. The slowdown in the overall pattern becomes a lot more stuck in place and whatnot. So some of the finer details still remains a little bit open to question and some uncertainty, but starting to become more interesting in terms of the modelling now picking up in the response with the sudden stratospheric warming that took place. Now, this is the reversal in the zonal winds within the stratosphere. We did see that, of course, the major sudden stratospheric warming event take place, and now the modelling is now starting to pick up on that downwell and that transfer of reverse winds from high up down into the lower portion of the stratosphere. And now the modelling is picking up on that tropospheric response, and the response being in the 500 millibar pattern. We're going to start to reverse the overall pattern. Instead of it being low pressure over the high latitudes, we're going to reverse that with high pressure, with blocking, and therefore we're going to release a lot of the cold air into the mid latitude pattern. It has been very, very mild in many parts of the world in the last few weeks, and I believe anyway that because of the Magellan oscillation stuck in phase 3, then going through phase 4, 5, 6, they're unfavourable phases for mid latitude cold, but now we're back into more interesting territory, phase 7 and phase 8. Combine that with the response to the sudden stratospheric warming, and we have got a lot of interesting things going on. So you can see here with the wind response here flipping from westerly to easterly. Then, as you can see here in the forecast period, we've got this all important propagation down of reversing those winds from westerly to easterly into the lower portion of the stratosphere, into the troposphere, and then we get the response. Now, the Arctic oscillation seen by the GFS ensemble was not going negative, but this is the latest run of the GFS ensemble, and you can see here that is going into negative territory, and I think we're going to continue to see that taking place. What does this mean? It just simply means that we have, instead of having low heights within the Arctic, we've got above normal heights, and therefore the ability for the atmosphere to release that cold south into the mid latitude pattern. But that's not all game, set, and match. We still need to see the type of setup within our part of the world. Now, this is the ECMWF weeklies, and this is actually the period between the 20th of February and the 22nd of March. You can see here this is the geopotential 500 millibar height anomaly chart, and we do have a favourable pattern for cold. Big negative over eastern portions of Europe, negative to the southwest of the UK, or south of the UK, and the positive is up towards Greenland and Iceland. Look at the 2-meter temperature anomalies here for the same period, and you can see here what it's shown. So this is the 30-day anomaly of the ECMWF weeklies, and you can see here that it has below average temperatures here, and that is a response, I believe, of both the both the GFS, not the GFS, I'm talking waffle. It's a response to both, I think, the combination of the Magellan oscillation going into the favourable cold phases and the sudden stratospheric warming. Upcoming 7 days, not particularly cold, but there's no surprise there because we're still a little bit early in seeing that response into the troposphere. But you notice here, as we play through, with the month of February starting to turn colder on the model, and then it's as we go deeper into the month of February, you start to see the cold, or deeper into the month of March, should I say. I do apologize. I'm getting old. And you can see here how it turns colder and colder and colder through the month of March here. And like I've said in previous videos, sometimes this response within the stratosphere into the troposphere can have long-lived effects, even when the winds at 10 millibars or even 50 millibars goes back to westerly once again. But there is a double reversal in the mean zonal winds within the stratosphere, so the chances are that basically the polar vortex is not going to recover once again. It's too late in the season now, and it looks as if we are going to see the polar vortex basically get dissipated for pretty much the remainder of the season here. But the effects of cold into the pattern could linger through the majority of March, might have a little bit of recovery and then return to cold, but could linger even into the month of April. And of course, that is a long way off, so there's no point in getting too carried away just yet. But just to reiterate the point that I've already made so far, we've seen the southern stratosphere warming, we've seen the major reversal in winds from westerly to easterly, and now we're starting to see that downwelling, that transfer of reversed winds into the lower portion of the stratosphere, and we are now seeing the model pick up on a tropospheric response. Now this is the 70 HPA level. 10 days from now, if we actually look back at the initial, you can start to see that we have got responses taking place. So strong blocking, strong warming at the 70 millibar level here, as you can see. So this is the lower portion of the atmosphere. So we're already starting to see that response from top down. And then, of course, the modeling is picking up on interesting things. Now, this is the CFS V2, and this is the weeklies here. So you can start to see colder than normal appearing across the south of the UK and indeed into France and Spain. Week 2, we've got below normal to the south, warmer than normal across the north. So the models are picking up on this high latitude blocking now, start to push further and further north in response to that strat warming. And then you can start to see Europe turning colder. So that warming over the Atlantic represents the high getting pushed to the west, to the north, up towards Greenland, and we pull Arctic air, polar air south into the pattern. And this is, of course, the period now 8th through the 15th of March. I think it's week 2 of March that we really start to see this pattern kicking in, and then it looks as if it pulls out, according to the CFSV2 anyway, towards the end of the month. Definitely the combination of the Manchurian oscillation and the strat warming showing its hand. Looking at the next few days here, by the way, very, very dry pattern continuing. It doesn't look as if we're going to see any change. The reason why is because high pressure is going to remain dominant through this weekend and into even the early portion of next week. Parts of the south of Wales, parts of southern England as well, barely a drop of rain. I think we're at record low levels for rainfall. What a contrast to the first 10 days of January. We've seen record rain actually across southern portions of the UK. We've completely flipped that around, and that is what's amazing about this winter, is the huge contrast that we've seen. Mega mild conditions across the north of the UK, for the last 15 or so days, but yet we had a reasonable winter December and through the majority of January. But once we flick that switch to milder, we've simply not come back to seeing cold. So it's going to be a bit of a shock to the system, I think, in the next few weeks here with this pattern. I think we're getting increasingly more confident, or I'm certainly getting more confident. I know what fellow forecasters, whether it be professional or amateur, now becoming more confident that this pattern is going to materialize. But the one slight nagging concern would be that the block sits too close to the UK and therefore we might see Europe getting flooded by cold air and the UK really missing out. It's all about the positioning of that high that's going to be critical in terms of what type of outlook we get during the month of February. But certainly the latest run of the GFS is looking quite interesting. We do have a northerly flow at the moment, so modestly chilly air, but pretty much average. So it's nothing to write home about at the moment here. Then as we go through, you notice here the position of the high is to the west of the UK, but we've not got a connection to the north. You notice here the isobars are bringing air off the Atlantic around the top and into the British Isles. So we've not got a cold source to tap at the moment here. It's once you get that high to start sticking snows further north, you connect the colder source air and bring it into the British Isles here. So as we play through the next few days, we've got another feature coming around the top of that high. Another cold front will push south, reintroducing another shot of chillier air. So we have a coolish day today after seeing temperatures 16, 17 Celsius in recent days. Incredible for the month of February. Not all-time record breaking, but certainly incredibly mild nonetheless. Yesterday's low, the UK minimum temperature was 0.3 Celsius at Okehampton in the southwest of England. That's remarkable for the 21st of February to only see a temperature of 0.3 for a minimum in the UK is incredible. We're about to change that. And that area of high pressure as it builds in over the weekend is going to bring back nighttime frosts once again. So this is 6 o'clock on Friday morning UTC, and you can see here that we've got that slack airflow. So we don't have a particularly strong wind blowing over the UK, but we have a nagging easterly wind coming in off the North Sea. As we progress through the course of the weekend, that area of high pressure kind of topples its way in, reinforcing the dry theme across the UK, but also with clear skies, light winds, temperatures are going to come down quite significantly at night time. So that's going to be a bit of a shock to the system. Look at that area of low pressure over the Atlantic. Wow, that's strong. And that's actually quite the contrast. 951 millibar low over the North Atlantic. Few, 500-600 miles to the east, and we've got a 1030 high centered over Scotland here. So quite the contrast, and that has been the case all winter. 1033 versus 947 millibars. So big contrasts in the pressure field. There's 1047 versus 10, so 947 millibars versus 1036, 1037 millibars over the UK here. So big contrast. As we play through the final days of February, watch what happens. The area of high pressure starts to lift north and northwest, and this is where the moulds are starting to pick up on that tropospheric response from the stratospheric warming and from the Mann-Julian oscillation going into phase 7, 8, possibly 1. That area of high pressure then exits, pushes to the north, opens the floodgates, and we've got that biting northerly wind coming into the British Isles. Paying attention, some of these areas of low pressure over the Atlantic, over southern Europe, they may try to push northwards and increase the chance of seeing snowfall. So this is an interesting time frame. Late week 1 of March into week 2, I think we're increasing the chances of snow prospects, and indeed we're increasing the cold into the pattern here. Looking at the 850 temperatures here before I start running out of time. Play through the loop. You can see here that we've got some chilly air over the UK at the moment. Then we'll have another push of cold air coming down from the north with that secondary front. Then it's as we push towards the period, we've got that cold air running underneath the high, so fairly chilly, by the way, over the weekend, especially across southern portions of the UK. That biting easterly wind, relatively cold, but notice the warmer with that area of high pressure pushing north, and then we're starting to see this cold coming down. But it's once that area of high pressure pushes west, bang, cold air comes down. Watch this space, lots going on. Keep it right here on my YouTube channel. Check out marfloganweather.com, and if you haven't already done so, hit that subscribe button.